What's up, Meandering Spirits? It's Shane here. Today I want to show you a variant of a tarp setup technique that I've previously showcased and explained how to do. That tarp setup is mostly geared towards more established campsites where there's a lot of trees and it's fairly easy to stake lines into the ground to anchor the ends of a tarp. But what happens if you're in the backcountry and as I am here right now here at Grundy Lake, and the ground is rock solid. You'll have to figure out different ways of doing things, and I just want to showcase what I've done with our tarp setup this time. So basically it's a modified version of the tarp setup that I showcased in a previous video, and I'll link to that up at the top there. But basically it's the same concept, just a little bit more engineered, so to speak. Like I said, there's no real place to put anchor points into the ground with ground stakes because there isn't enough topsoil. It's all solid rock, just a few centimeters or a few inches underneath, so you can't get a good stake into the ground if you're at where this table or picnic table is set up. So what did I do? So in this case, I did a modified version of what I showcased, which is basically built a spine or main line that spans between two trees, and it's starting here and it goes to that tree there. That's like the spine or the main anchor that the tarp drapes over, and then all the corners are then pegged to either trees, or in this case what I had to do was find roots that are in between the rock, and then I just basically anchored my lines to those and then connecting them to the corners. And what I did here was, because it's so windy in this location, it's just, as you can see, just exposed to the lake. That's that's Gerd Lake. This is Grundy Lake Provincial Park here in Ontario. What I ended up having to do is, because this tarp was so large and too big for what we needed, fold it in half, and then that line that I said was basically creating that backbone, I ended up tying that to another line to a tree there. Basically what that ends up doing is it helps suspend the tarp up above, so that if it gets really windy, the tarp doesn't flap around too much. There's a lot of support here. Okay, so I did that there, like I said, and then each of the corners I then anchored to a different point. So this one's anchored to a root, and this one's a little bit lower, and the other ones are a little bit higher. So this one here, again, that's anchored to this tree here, which is a similar support for that backbone. We have another support here on this corner, and this one's a little bit higher, but again, it's lower than that backbone, so that it creates that tension, which keeps the tarp suspended. And then we have that corner there suspended on that tree over there. This tarp, it's not great for fully backcountry camping. You know, we consider this backcountry camping because you have to canoe in to this site. But if you're hiking into a campsite, this is just too big and too bulky to bring. So instead, you would bring a smaller, more like a sill nylon tarp or a polyester tarp that's coated. Also rope. Make sure you bring enough rope. For this location, some of the trees are very, very far apart. Some of these trees are 50 feet. No, maybe not 50, maybe 30 feet apart. So you got to make sure you have enough rope of good length. You don't need very, very thick gauge rope. Thin rope is fine. This is a few millimeters in diameter. Again, I'll link to some of this rope in the description below. You can use paracord. I have paracord here as well. I could have easily used it. It's strong enough to hold this tarp up, but I find this material, this rope, very easy to work with. I usually have this rope to suspend food barrels, food containers, and things like that up into trees, but we didn't have to do it this time, so I was able to use it for this purpose. But again, I had extra material. But anyways, this is the tarp setup. So again, it's not the prettiest, but it does the job. It's very, very functional. Lots of headroom, so you can come in. As you can see, you know, I'm not super tall, but basically lots of height. Set up this main line high up, as high as you can. Toss that over. maybe some branches or so, and then around the tree, and then bring it down so that it's nice and high. So you have lots and lots of headroom. Make sure it's angled a bit on each side so that if it does rain, if things do fall, it does slope away and slope down, and it clears it and doesn't weigh it down with any rain. And if it's windy, if it's sloped a certain way, and it doesn't catch too much of the wind, it doesn't flap too much. So make sure it's not super angled, so that it can deflect a lot of that wind away. The other thing is, if you do have to fold your tarp, and this is what I found out the hard way, is make sure that folded part is on the leading edge of the wind. If you have the open-ended part of the tarp that's folded, it's gonna catch the wind and it's gonna go inside. It's just gonna basically create a massive sail. So make sure it's on the windward side here, okay? So that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you have any questions about this tarp setup or any other tarp setups, leave a comment in the description below. You can find more information on meanderingspirits.com about the outdoors, camping, general tips and tricks and things like that. Again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.